So I have a question for you guys. How would you react if I told you that I've been using a BlackBerry for the last couple weeks? That's one thing, but I have a follow-up question for you. How would you react if I told you that I have been enjoying using a BlackBerry for the last couple weeks? So truth be told, I have been using the Blackberry Key2 for the better part of almost 2 weeks now, and I gotta tell you guys, I've been really enjoying it. So we're gonna talk about what the Blackberry Key2 does well and what it doesn't do so well for those of you who may be on the fence about purchasing a BlackBerry in the year 2018. Cannot believe I'm saying that, but let's get to it. We're gonna start with my favorite part of the Blackberry Key2, and that's the design. Holy crap, as soon as I took this thing out of the box and I held it in my hand, it was like a blast from the past. So with all the smartphone manufacturers manufacturing these super expensive phones for 2018, they're going majority glass with a little bit of aluminum in between, super curved chamfered edges, fits well in the hand, all that nice stuff. BlackBerry took that and just shoved it right out the window. The Blackberry Key2 is super industrial. I mean, you're not gonna find anything too rounded on this. The whole phone is shaped like a rectangle, super rectangular screen, super rectangular keyboard, super tactile buttons on the side. This phone looks like something out of geometry class, and I absolutely love it. It's also got the cool little Kevlar backing. So hardware-wise, this phone manages to feel nice in 2018, but also have that retro BlackBerry feel. If you have ever owned a BlackBerry, you will get a hit of nostalgia as soon as you pick up this phone. It is amazing. Other hardware specs to note. On the top of the phone, you have a headphone jack. Thank you, BlackBerry. On the bottom, you have a USB Type-C port for fast charging. Works well. You also have a single firing speaker on the bottom. We'll get to that later. And on the right side of the phone, you have all of your hardware buttons. On the top, you have your volume rocker. In the middle, you have a textured power button. And underneath the power button, you have your convenience key, which makes its return. The buttons are also tactile and clicky, which is, I cannot tell you how much that is underrated on smartphones. When you have tactile and clicky buttons, it just makes the user experience that much better. I hope you guys can hear this. But the real showstopper in terms of hardware on this phone, and you guys guessed it, is the full-blown QWERTY keyboard, and that is where you're gonna get the most nostalgia using this phone. Now, I gotta tell you, typing on a physical keyboard in 2018, especially since you're so used to using touchscreen keyboards, is rough. I mean, I was using the phone to send texts out to quite a few people while I was using it, and it took me at least a day or so to get readjusted to typing on a physical keyboard, and even then, my speed was nowhere close to what it used to be back when I had my BlackBerry. And you wanna know what the last BlackBerry I had was? It was the BlackBerry Pearl. Does anyone remember that phone? Like it's like this big, okay? Did not even have a QWERTY keyboard. I don't even know what is it, like a T9 or what is that keyboard called? It's something weird. Okay, it's the one where you have to push buttons multiple times to get the different letters. That's how long ago I have had a BlackBerry. Since then, it's majority touchscreen keyboards. So yeah, getting used to the physical keyboard was difficult. Cool parts about the physical keyboard though, BlackBerry made it modern in 2018. There is a fingerprint sensor in the spacebar. Works really well, it's accurate. And then you can also scroll just by swiping your thumb up and down on the keyboard. So if you're on a website, you don't have to touch the display. You can actually swipe up and down on the keyboard and it goes up and down. So you kind of save that already small screen real estate. That's really cool. And you're gonna wanna master all of those gestures on the BlackBerry keyboard because we're gonna go ahead and segue into the display, and it is tiny on this phone. It's about 4.5 inches and it's a 1080p IPS LCD display with roughly 430 pixels per inch. It's a good display, not great. It can definitely use some work, especially considering it's LCD. It's super small, so it's not as sharp as it could possibly be. Outdoor visibility is decent. It's essentially a screen that's just going to get you by. It's not anything too spectacular. But think about it this way. It is a small display, but it's essentially like using a flagship of 2018 with the keyboard consistently out. So if you take most flagships and just always have your keyboard out, you have a slightly smaller display. If you think about it that way, it's not that bad, I guess. So the screen is okay, but one aspect where BlackBerry really nailed it, other than hardware, is the software. So it comes out of the box with Android 8.0 Oreo. Actually, as soon as I took mine out, I had an update to 8.1 Oreo, which is really good. But where it really shines, believe it or not, is in the security enhancements and some of the just general software tweaks that BlackBerry has thrown in. So I got a couple of them that I want to talk to you guys about. One of them is called Redactor. This reminds me of almost like a Call of Duty Black Ops style thing. If anyone played that and you played the story mode, there was a guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he would talk to you about what was going on in the missions. And as he was talking to you, they would show these like files. The files would slowly get blacked out, like they would black out confidential information. You can do that with the Redactor tool. So if you want to take a screenshot of something, but you want certain aspects of it to remain private, you can enable Redactor, black out what you want to remain private, take the screenshot and send it. Or this works well for documents as well. Also built into the Redactor is what's called a privacy shade. And this is to, I guess, keep peeping eyes away from looking at your phone if you're looking at something important or confidential. So it essentially cuts out a small portion of your display that's viewable to the person who's looking directly at it, and it's not so viewable to people who are looking around the phone. So you can enlarge the area that you would like to view as well, and you can also adjust the transparency of what's shaded out. So you can make it a little lighter, or you can make it super dark to where you absolutely cannot see anything other than what's visible. It's really cool. On top of all that, you have BlackBerry's Detect Security Suite, which we all know is excellent in terms of overall phone security, and it gives you status updates on how well your phone is doing, and it even gives you tips on how to make your security even better. So yeah, software is done right with 8.1, but security and added features, that just takes it up a whole nother level. So yes, BlackBerry nailed the software on this one. And another aspect where BlackBerry kills it, the freaking battery on this phone, man, it's nuts. Take a look at this screenshot. So this is my usage of today, and this video is being shot on July 30th. So this is my overall usage today. As you can see at the time of shooting this video, I haven't charged the phone for 14 hours. That is more than a regular day's worth of work and also leaving work and coming home. And you can see that I've also got about 2.5 hours of screen on time and my battery's at 67%. Now I've been using the phone throughout the day. As you can see, I got 2.5 hours of screen on time, but what's important is I'm only at 67. So I'm on pace to break well over 5 hours of screen on time, probably even pushing 6 or 7, depending on what you're doing. The battery size is 3,500 milliamp hours, which is decent, but obviously the build of the phone helps as well. It's got a 4.5-inch 1080p display. And on top of that, it's got a mid-tier processor. So it's not exactly the most battery-hungry device, but it also lasts a really long time. You could easily get through one day, probably push 1.5 days before you have to put it on charge. And one really cool thing, BlackBerry has what's called a, I guess, turbo mode whenever it comes to charging. It's not necessarily fast charging, like let's say OnePlus's Dash Charge, but instead what it does is throttle some of the stuff on your phone and also limit background app refresh so your phone charges faster. Have you ever had someone tell you that if you put your phone in airplane mode, it charges faster? It's similar without cutting out your entire wireless network. So we're kind of getting to that point now where we're gonna talk about, I guess you could call these improvement opportunities. They're not necessarily deal breakers, but they're just something to think about whenever you consider buying this phone in terms of its overall like longevity in the future. One of them I've already touched on, and it's the display. It's, you know, in 2018, whenever we're dealing with so many good displays, it's kind of tough to get adjusted to another 1080p display. And I know there are some phones out there that do it. Like I know OnePlus has something really similar, although they use an AMOLED panel, so it just looks a lot better. Colors are more vibrant and they just stick out a little more. I kind of wish BlackBerry would have done something a little different, considering you're already getting a small display, so it might as well be a really good small display. Again though, that's not really a deal breaker. Number 2 is the chipset. It's coming with a Snapdragon 660 and an Adreno 512 GPU. It's decent. And to be 100% honest with you guys, during my everyday use, it didn't really affect anything. There was some animations and things that I was doing where I noticed some hiccup and some stutter, but those have kind of gone away now that I've updated the phone and I've kind of got some general use out of it. But nonetheless, 2018 Snapdragon 660, it's just something to think about. Again, not a deal breaker. So yeah, those are the 2, I would say, improvement opportunities for BlackBerry. Another small pain point, the bottom firing speaker. You guys already know, with a bottom firing speaker, it's not too hot. With this particular phone, it's like extra not too hot, if that makes sense. It's an entirely average speaker. Even whenever you turn the volume all the way up, it doesn't necessarily get tinny or distorted, but it just sounds entirely average. Media consumption as a whole on this device is just not that great. You have a 4.5-inch display, you have a huge keyboard to the right, and then on top of that, you have a bottom firing speaker. So it's not horrible, but just understand that this phone is not made for media consumption. Now, supposed Geekbench score of the new iPhone just came out, and I say supposed because I want you guys to take it with a... Man, that guy has an annoying voice. So by far the worst part of the Key 2 is the camera. The front and the rear. They're both well below average. On the back, you have a dual camera setup, which I was excited to try out. Both are 12 megapixel shooters. Obviously, you have a primary and you have a secondary. Now, the secondary is going to be used more for that zoom effect. But either way, even shots on the primary shooter are kind of grainy once you start zooming in. Color reproduction is not too great. The colors are kind of flat and dull. The camera has some issues with dynamic range, especially whenever you're trying to focus and take a shot that has dynamic range elements associated with it. Video is not all too great either. You can go all the way up to 4K 30 frames per second. I would probably recommend sticking at 1080p 60 frames. That's how I shot a lot of my videos. It's decent, right? Video, I would say, is probably better than photos, to be honest with you. Once you take the time to actually zoom in and look at the details of the photos, that's whenever you start to notice the camera is subpar. Low light is also below average. It's able to capture light, which I'm okay with. It's just not able to hold that detail, which that kind of gets a slight pass because it's hard for almost any phone to capture a lot of detail when it comes to low light. The front camera, oh my gosh, that's a whole different story. It's a 1080p shooter and it's just bad. I practiced with my girlfriend taking a few selfies, and yeah, it took a while to not only focus, the shutter speed was also incredibly slow, and the pictures just did not come out too hot either. Now granted, those were in low light, so you got to kind of take that into understanding as well. But either way, if you guys have seen any other tech YouTubers videos, especially on Box Therapy, who tested the selfie camera, it's not good. So cameras definitely need to improve on this phone, or at least the Key 3, since this one's already out. So that's about it. Talked about what I really like with the Key 2 and what I feel like they can improve on, and just what's not there. Here's the thing, $650. After tax, the phone is just slightly over $700. I want to say like $703, $704, depending on your tax rate. That's quite a bit for a phone that definitely has some improvement opportunities. And just improvement opportunities set aside, the competition in today's marketplace to earn your pocket space is so tough. Look at the OnePlus 6. $529 gets you much better processing, a better display, a better camera, arguably a better build quality, depending on who you are, and you're getting a slightly modified version of stock Android. So it all kind of depends on what you're looking for. Me personally, I've used Blackberries growing up. I enjoyed the phone. And I know there are a lot of you out there who are probably close to my age who have also used Blackberries that would genuinely enjoy this phone if you bought it. But it's hard for me to tell you to buy it at $650. If it was maybe $100 or $200 cheaper, then yeah, sure, go for it. But you have way too many options in this price range to have the sacrifices that this phone brings. So just something to keep in mind. If you get it, I'm fairly confident you will enjoy it. But I don't blame you for looking at other phones. The phone seems to be targeted more for the business person. And I understand that because BlackBerry has, in my opinion, slowly moved towards that segment, especially considering just how saturated today's marketplace is. So if you're like me and you're a huge tech nerd, give it a try. You'll enjoy it. But like I said, I don't blame you for exploring the marketplace because you could probably find a better deal on arguably a better phone. But that just about does it for me, guys. I got to get ready to get out of here. I hope y'all enjoyed the review. Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one as always. Peace. Other notable little hardware specs that the phone has. On the bottom, you will find a USB Type-C port for fast charging, which is really nice. Single monotone speaker. We'll get that Oh, we'll get that.
You'll get that.
You.